Welcome to the second day with presentations. Nice to see someone up at the morning. Like every year, a Zabbix presentation. This year, not from Riyadh because he had a motorcycle accident, but I think Wolfgang will give us a great talk too. So just enjoy.
So, thank you and good morning, first of all. Yeah, usually Riyadh from Zabbix here would have given the presentation. Unfortunately, as you were told, he had an accident, so he was not able to come here. But I'm with Zabbix for more than 10 years now, so we know each other for a long time. So he asked me to take over this presentation here, and I'm really glad to be here today and to give you an overview about what Zabbix is about for those of you who are not familiar with Zabbix, as well as give you an idea about what we can expect from Zabbix 3.0. Some words about myself. So what qualifies me, maybe the fact that I'm, for example, a certified Zabbix 3.0 trainer. I'm a certified specialist, and our company is pretty much dedicated to give services around Zabbix, so that's why I'm here. Yeah. So I hope you will enjoy the presentation, even if it's not from Riyadh, and you get something new. There will be a QA session at the end, so if you have questions, try to answer them at the end of the presentation. Riyadh gave the presentation the name, the simple, the powerful, and the shiny. And when I read the title, I was asking myself, so why is this simple, powerful, and shiny? And we try to figure out, so what's the reason? Yeah, maybe it's simple because it's a major all-in-one monitoring solution. Zabbix comes with all of the components out of the box. It's packaged for nearly every major Linux distribution. On Debian, you can do an apt-get install. Zabbix, you can do yum install and so on. So it's really packaged for every major Linux distribution. And once it's being installed, it's really, really easy to set up. You just set up some database credentials, and most likely you are done to do the first monitoring. Zabbix comes with templates for Linux and Windows systems, and for some major well-known applications out of the box, as well as SNMP templates available. So you can start immediately to do your switch monitoring, for example. Yeah? And the community provides on Zabbix Share, which we will see later on the new dashboard, provides on Zabbix Share also a collection of quite powerful Zabbix templates that can be used for monitoring. So that's why it's simple. Why it's powerful, I ask again, Riyadh, when taking over the presentation. So what makes Zabbix powerful? And he said maybe it's because it's able to monitor really millions of items, and that's basically true. So before coming here to the conference, I visited a customer in Germany who is a very big customer of us, and they're running close to 1 million items. Yeah? 10,000 of hosts is also possible. I've been in Switzerland. We have a customer there who is in the range of 10,000 hosts plus per Zabbix server instance, per instance of one Zabbix server. Zabbix allows distributed monitoring across networks. We will see this later on in more detail. And the template system provided with Zabbix allows to unify the configuration of the monitored host across the entire system. It has flexible escalation management, and it has an API to integrate any third-party application. Also, we will have a look to the API thing later on. Now, the last question is why it's shining. Yeah. So, what makes Zabbix shiny? And maybe because it's been developed over 15 years now. So there's really continuous development over the last 15 years. Alexey Vladishev, also a friend of mine, founded Zabbix before 2000. He's really focused, he's really dedicated on this project. And if you look up the website, it's really an open source project that from the quality point of view, from its visibility, can compete with any commercial offering. It's true open source actually, so there's no split into like you can download the community version and then you can get extras through the enterprise or professional version. So it's a true open source solution. There's nothing hidden. Everything is available to you. Zabbix in 2013, I guess it was. Zabbix started to release the first LTS version, and the LTS version addresses the requirements of enterprise customers in the range of that they would like to have a solution that is major, that is not changing always, where they can rely on, where they can get bug fixes, so where they can do the usual planning, and that is what the LTS version is about. On top of it, of course, there are regular bug fixes for the in-between versions, let me call them this way. There are regular bug fixes as well, of course, for the LTS stuff, yeah. For those using a network monitoring solution within the enterprise itself, it is more than reasonable to have a commercial backup and to have a commercial support contract that covers like reaction times and so on, and bug fixes or issues you might have, yeah. All of this is covered in enterprise-friendly support pricing plans that are available and that are provided by Zabbix here. So that makes it shiny. Yeah, a little bit of history about Zabbix. As I said, before 2000, yeah, it was 1998, the idea of Zabbix was born. In close to 2000, there was the first GPL release, and then you can see in 2005, the decision was made to found a company to have a commercial backup for Zabbix, so to be able to provide commercial services, so to get access to enterprise customers. And then you see in 2006 and 2007, there were enhancement over enhancement done, and for example, in 2013, the first LTS release was created. 2012, because of, I think the customer is the Japanese telecom, but I'm not 100% sure because it's not my business. Zabbix Japan was founded, and from what I've seen on the conference a few months ago, it was quite successful. Yeah. Also worth mentioning, in 2013, Zabbix added core native VMware monitoring with its own VMware collector, sponsored development, which made it very powerful in VMware environments. So, how does Zabbix work? In short, we have of course the data, the Zabbix server, and the Zabbix server itself is responsible to do the data collection and the data analysis, as you can see. Also, the Zabbix server runs any process that has to deal with, like notification, for example, and the data that's being collected are actually stored in a database. The database can be it can't be anything, but can be a lot. Like it can be a MySQL database, it can be a PG SQL database, it can be an SQLite database, it can be a DB2 database, it can be a Oracle database. So there are a lot of database adapters actually available in Zabbix. It's your preference, and you can make your selection. Yeah, and of course there's a web front end to allow the visualization of what's happening. 3 components add up to Zabbix. If you do, for example, on Linux an apt-get install, you will be asked for the server part, for the front-end part, etc. So 3 components make it up. That is the Zabbix server itself, the engine that does all the processing thing, the front-end, of course, to get access to it, and at least the database. These are the 3 components that can be either installed on one machine, and in smaller environments it makes absolutely sense to do this, and they can also be split up into different machines, like have a own machine for the front-end part and have a different machine for the database server and the Zabbix server part. Yeah, especially this makes sense when you have got a lot of people running the dashboard, because the dashboard to get updated needs to query the data in the database and to need to show you the status of triggers, etc. And that can take up some time if all people refresh every 30 seconds their dashboards. So a lot of queries happening, and the Apache process goes up and down, or the nginx process. So this makes sense then, you know, to have a different system available to run the front-end part. But again, it can be on the same machine. We are running on our end, we provide for smaller enterprise customers something which is called a Zabbix proxy. We will see this later on. It's a simple, more simple Zabbix server instance, and this one's from a CF card on a 300 megahertz processor, and it's using the SQLite database, for example. Same software, same stuff, and works also. Talking about Zabbix proxy means talking about distributed monitoring. Very early came up the request to be able to, distribute the monitoring across networks, across regions, across VPNs, and stuff like that. And the question was, so how can that be done reliable and easily? And the answer to this is the so-called Zabbix proxy. And it's not really complicated. So basically, the Zabbix proxy is the same or similar piece of software that is a Zabbix server. It collects data and it sends data. What it does not do is it actually does not process the data in terms of that it creates actions, alerts, or runs triggers. That is what it does not. So what it really does is it collects data and passes over these data to the Zabbix server. So if I don't know whether I've got something, I don't want to risk this here. Okay. So let's say I've got the Zabbix proxy here. So what it does is, and it's behind the company firewall number 2, for example, here. Then it will directly talk in the local area network to those network devices. It will collect the data, and it will then pass over the data in one go to the Zabbix server, which is behind the firewall, which might be public available or so. Yeah? So, for example, you have a company headquarter here in Nuremberg, yeah? But you have subsidiaries in maybe other countries. You can run a Zabbix proxy in these other countries. They can do the entire data collection, and then they can pass over these collected data to the central Zabbix server instance. And this central Zabbix server instance will process the data, will analyze the data, and will also store the data. So the Zabbix proxies are a big step forward to allow for distributed monitoring. Because the Zabbix proxies do run either the item measurement on their own, or they talk to something which is called an agent. We will see this later. They are also quite helpful to actually load balance the required network or CPU performance, yeah, because you can distribute it across multiple proxies. So, for example, let's say we would like to monitor in Nuremberg on its own. We would like to monitor like 20,000 hosts. I have not a use case for that, but you get the idea. Then I could split those to different proxies. So although they're on the same network, we just use the proxies to separate and split the load. So very, very handy tool and very easy to configure. And this opens the door to distributed network monitoring. So far we have seen there's a Zabbix server instance. The Zabbix server instance does somehow get data. We don't know actually how we get to the data. That is what we are looking into right now. And we figured out that these data can be either collected by a Zabbix server itself or by something that is called a Zabbix proxy. So that's where we have been, where we are today, where we are right now. So let's see what item types are available. So what metrics can be measured and how can the metrics be measured. So the obvious one is using something which is called the Zabbix agent, a piece of software that's being installed and then provides data like CPU usage, like memory usage, like these sort of things. Yeah? The Zabbix agent can be either run in a so-called passive mode. That is where the server instant asks the agent, please tell me what's up. Please give me your CPU time. Or the Zabbix agent can send actively on its own data to the server or proxy process. We have got agentless checks, which we called simple checks, and those simple checks are performed usually by the Zabbix server itself. I'll give you an example, like you will check whether the TCP port for IMAP, for POP3, for HTTP is available. So checks that are can be done without using any agent-side software. This is called an agentless check. We can access any SNMP data, like we can do SNMP polls on one hand, but we also can work with SNMP traps. So Zabbix supports SNMP traps as well. Zabbix Sender is a nice tool that allows to inject data from an application or from a script that's usually not used to not to be used in monitoring environments. An example: you've got a self-written backup script, and you would like to pass over the state of the result, like whether there was an error, whether it was running okay, and stuff like that. You know this. So what you can do is you can just simply at the end of the script, you can just use Zabbix Sender, define your own metric like backup state, for example, and then you send with Zabbix Sender your value to this item, and then it's been treated like it would be a regular item. So very, very useful. We're doing a lot with Zabbix Sender, by the way. Yeah. Internal with somewhere around 1.8 or so, or 1.6, 1.8, Zabbix started to give more and more information about its insights in terms of metrics. So you can see Zabbix internal health metrics, and these are really, really valuable. They're valuable in terms of Zabbix allows you to configure a lot. Like you can configure value cache, configuration cache, history cache, the number of pollers for ICMP, for dead hosts, for whatever you would like to. So yes, there's a lot of configuration options that you have available. And to properly set up and configure this, especially in a large environment, really, really requires you to know that you know what Zabbix is doing, what's going on. So where's memory used, where's CPU used, are there enough processes handling all the items that you would like to request. And the internal items provided by Zabbix itself allows you to exactly do this. Yeah, VMware Collector, I just mentioned it. I don't want to go into depth to the VMware Collector because you can talk about this one maybe an hour or so. But the short story is it provides gets you data about the hypervisor itself, as well as it gets you the data about the virtual machine. So you can get a virtual machine view, or can get a view from a virtual machine from a VMware perspective, as well as that you install the agent locally, and then you get the guest view as well. So both is possible, gives you an excellent idea about what's happening with your systems. It's a single poll collector. What does it mean? In the past, you have seen a lot of scripts that were around the internet. Some were based on the Perl API from VMware, and what they did is they connect to the vSphere service, to the ESX service, got some metrics, threw away most of them, and just got you the metric that you were interested in. So if you were asking for 30 metrics this way, then you would have done 30 VMware API calls, which really slows down the VMware server instance. So it does, this stuff works with a single poll, so the collector gets the information, it stores them locally, and when you define items that would like to get access to them, they get it without asking VMware again. So that's really useful. The other one, maybe a little bit shorter, web monitoring. Web monitoring, Zabbix comes with an inbuilt, on the server side, an inbuilt entirely a web agent that allows you to do something which we call a scenario. So a scenario might be that you have, for example, a shop system, and you want to check this online shop. So what would you need to do? You visit the shop. Then you see that the shop says hello and gives you some offers. That's fine. Now you want to check whether the database really works, whether the custom processing behind works. So what you would like to do is then you would like to log in with a demo user. And you would then expect to see hello, for example, I take Wolfgang Alper, this is my name, then I would expect after the login that the page says somewhere hello Wolfgang or something like that. So I can really make sure that the authorization process works and the stuff behind works. And all this can be done with the web monitoring built in Zabbix in so-called scenarios. So you can create a couple of scenarios and really do interactive checking of your website. And in the response you get like how long did it take that the data was loaded and stuff like that. IPME is a core ability to monitor IPME devices like mainboards or whatever you have. JMX is a special collector that allows you to monitor insights of any Java process. in Zabbix. Aggregate functionality. It's an item type, so it's a metric that you get from Zabbix. The important thing here is it's somehow more likely calculated. And what it does is gives you the ability to do group sums, for example, or to group operations. So let's say you have multiple MySQL database server, and what you would like to know is, so what is the summary of the storage usage of all of those database servers? And you can use those group sum functionalities. External checks. Zabbix server can basically run any script, any shell script, and get the result, what it gets back from the shell script, as a value for a metric. So whatever script you are going to write, if it responds or returns something like a string, an integer, a float, or whatever, then this can be used as a metric. The SSH check is really worth mentioning. Someone familiar with a tool called Accept? Accept? Yeah, I see some people know what I'm talking about. Basically, what it does is the SSH agent is not what you might expect, like do an TCP connect on port 22. That would be a simple check we had on the left-hand side. So the SSH check is actually quite more. It allows you. Zabbix comes with an SSH agent, and the SSH check can run an entire SSH session against the host. So Zabbix logs into that host, Zabbix performs an action on that host, so what you would usually write, and the result of what's coming back then, the output, it's being treated as a metric. And that's really, really powerful. We just finished a project where we had to get some metrics from storage systems, and those metrics were not available through SNMP, and they were not available through any web service, but they were available through the command line. So you can, you could type some commands and could get the data out of it. So what we did, we were using then was we used the SSH check, and we did just ask Zabbix to perform this command on the device and get back those metrics as values. So really, really powerful thing. Yeah. Same for Telnet, yeah, which is the same functionality, but yeah, without any security. Yeah, database. Zabbix comes with a database item. What's that about? Zabbix provides any database that is Unix ODBC compatible. So what your Unix ODBC driver knows, Zabbix knows as well. And what you can do then is you can create queries, and whatever this query returns is the item for your monitoring. So it's up to you. Yeah, calculated item, the last one, and that is really useful, is based on, so similar to the aggregate functions we have seen above, you can take certain items and use any mathematical function on them, like for example adding them up. A use case for that we had recently was that we had to provide the number of pages that were printed by a printer, and the challenge was that the printer was counting black and white pages separately from colored pages. So if you know this problem. And the easy way to get the total number of printed pages was just to sum up those items. Yeah, so we had an item collector for SNMP query for the colored pages and for the black and white pages, and the calculated item was just adding up. Yeah, so very, very useful item. Yeah. Okay. Agent capabilities. So we spoke a little bit about the agent, and just without going into depth, again, that would take quite long, is CPU usage, memory usage, file system usage, log file analysis, yeah, more than 20 things built in. You see a very comprehensive information on the Zabbix website, on the documentation section, where all of those options are listed, and it's really, really powerful. It's very much there. We have our specific items, and I'm really, really, if I say I'm proud, maybe it's not up to me, so Zabbix has to be proud on themselves because they made it, but I'm proud to tell you, for example, for the Windows stuff, we have native integration of perfmon monitoring as well as WMI, so Windows Media Interface monitoring. So in other words, any value on a Windows system that is available to perfmon, and maybe you know perfmon. If you run just key in perfmon, then you get a graphical console where you see performance count is available through Windows. So any key, any item that is available through perfmon is available immediately to Zabbix. So, and if you look to the performance counters for like terminal services, for Exchange, for Microsoft SQL services, Active Directory things, whatever you keep an eye on it, it's huge. It's really huge, and you get all of those metrics immediately. And the same applies to the Windows Media Interface. Yeah? And on the other hand, of course, there are Linux or Unix specific items that are not available in Windows, like for example VFS inode. Yeah? Since there are no inodes on Windows, so pretty much you don't have an item that is specific to inodes. Yeah. Agent availability, available on a huge number of OS platforms. Yeah? Okay. So far, we have covered the Zabbix server, the Zabbix proxy. We talked about items. We have seen that there are agent-less items and agent-dependent items. And let's talk very quickly about one of the last missing pieces, which are the triggers. So we have collected the data. Everything is fine. Now we need to find a way to define a condition that allows us to say that's a problem. And trigger definitions are the answer to that one. Yeah? They're really, really flexible in Zabbix. So basically what you do is you take an item and you attach a trigger function like min, max, average, whatever you would like to, there are a couple of them, to this value and make a decision and say if that is equal, greater, less, whatever, then you would like to fire an event. And those events can then have 6 different levels of severity, which are listed quite there. Yeah. Options we have for the trigger stuff, and that's why it's flexible. We can take, for example, the average over the last 10 minutes. We can, for example, count the last 10 values only, which is not the same thing. Yeah? Last 10 minutes might be different to the last 10 values I've collected. Different story. Or we can, yeah, this one is nice. We can take the average for the last hour, as it says, relative to the same hour 1 day ago. So we take the current value and say, please compare this with at the same time the value from the last day or even from the last week. And if this is somehow different, you might fire a trigger. Yeah? And we can do it over multiple hosts. And a nice example for this one is, let's say you're running 2 email servers, which most of the companies do. So you have 2 email servers, one uses Mail Exchange 10 and the other one Mail Exchange 20. So if 10 goes down, then you would say that's not it's not so bad because MX 20 is still running. So my second mail server will take over and I get delivered mail, so that's fine. If mail server 20 goes down and 10 is up, same story. 1 is left, so we are fine. If both go down, then we are in trouble because we have no mail server running, and that's exactly what it's talking about. So each check for or each trigger for each mail server on its own will fire a different severity as the trigger that looks to both, or to the availability of both mail servers. Yeah? So you can define triggers across multiple hosts and across different items. Yeah. How does it look technically? I promise not to become that technical in the presentation, except when we move to Zabbix 3.0, then it needs to be a little bit more concrete. But that is how a trigger definition basically looks like. The red thing is the host name. In our case, it is lin server 1, or in the last example, lin server 2. Yeah? Then we have the item itself in blue, so system CPU load is the item. And then we have the trigger function that we apply. In this example, it's just always min, but we have seen there can be like max, there can be average, and so on. And we have a special syntax that allows us to define, like in the first example, over the course of 10 minutes, while the second example is with a hash sign, is over the course over the last 10 values I've been collected. And as you can see, over multiple hosts, we can connect trigger conditions and say, well, run through multiple hosts. Yeah. In short, how does it look like? let's say we have got a mail queue length and we have defined a trigger. If the mail queue exceeds the value 100, then we would like to get some, get something. What do we like to get? We need to talk about this, I realize. So mail queue exceeds 100, and then something is fired, which is called an action is fired, or an action is started from the event. And now operations take place depending on conditions. And we have defined here conditions. Say if the email server is effective, if severity reaches a certain value, then we won't like to send an SMS to the postmaster. And the last missing step for us is the escalation management. And that is where Zabbix also actually shines, because it's so flexible. We've got an item, we have got a trigger. Now the trigger fires. What could happen? It could happen that no one deals with the issue. So the mail server will stay forever in a non-functional state. It could be that someone says, okay, I take care of this. I acknowledge this event, yeah, and I will do something. So we have the situation that we know someone is dealing with the issue, but it's not yet fixed. Different story. Yeah? So the escalation management is exactly about this one. So it allows you to set up rules that you define and say how should notification be done. And one word that I missed in the previous part of the presentation is that Zabbix as an action, as a response to a file got triggered, can not only send you an email or give you a Java chat or whatever, it can also run automatic actions. So it can run scripts. Very nice example is what we always set up on the customer side. If the Exchange server stops to work, yeah, and we see that the information store service is not running properly, yeah, the first thing we do is we fire an action that just simply restarts the Exchange information store. And in 90% of those failures, the problem is fixed then. It works again. Yeah? So Zabbix can do it on its own. So that could be the first action. So we ask Zabbix, hey, you know what? Just restart the service, and if it's still an issue, then please let us know. So Zabbix can do this. Yeah? And the escalation rules can be based on the severity. They can be based on host names or host group names. So if host group equals 2, then do this. They can depend on the trigger name as well as on the trigger state, and they can also depend on the problem state or whether the problem is acknowledged. Yeah? So if, for example, in this example here, yeah, if at that time the help desk would acknowledge the trigger. So for example, the admin doesn't pick up the email and doesn't pick up the phone. Help desk gets informed 15 minutes after a ticket has been opened, and someone now acknowledges and says, yes, I'll take care of this in Zabbix. So the trigger now is still in a problem state, but it's saying someone is dealing with it. I've acknowledged it. Then the further escalation could be stopped. So this won't happen, for example. Yeah? So you can really do flexible steps. And those steps are called operations within such a scenario and can be defined quite easily. Okay. We have now nearly any pieces together. The question is, can we do some stuff in terms of, make our work easier? Can we do some sort of automating of, that we don't have to do all the boring work again and again, like attach items, define triggers and stuff. And templates here for the rescue. Yeah? Templates allow configuration across multiple hosts. You can define something which we call macros. Imagine vars, variables that you define on a global level, on a template level, on a host level. Like, for example, you create a trigger and say, if CPU is higher than, and then your CPU is higher macro, a variable. And on the system level, you define like if it's higher than 90%, this particular template says this value should be 80, and your current host where you deploy this one should be like 75. So you can have multiple values assigned to those macros, which make it very, very easy to really have customization on a host level. So these are just some examples for them. Templates can be used in so-called auto-discovery routes as well as in imported or exported XML files. Yeah. And you can combine templates. So for example, let's say you have got a host which is a web server, and the web server actually runs a MySQL server and an Apache process, and you can assign the Apache template as well as the MySQL template, and you are set. And the same template can of course be used for the email server, given it's been required for a web front end to access emails. The other one is that you can nest templates, so templates in templates, which is this scenario here. So we define something which is an email server template, and what we do is we attach the Apache template and the postfix template, in this case the PGSQL template. We do all attach them to one template, which we now call the email template, and now we just assign the email template and only this one to our email servers, and we are set. So both is possible. Yeah. The other one, the first one, I'm just looking and see some questionnaires and some faces, and I know that's not so easy, and I know it's very compressed. You know, we have an hour here, and we still need to talk about Zabbix here as well. So this one is more likely you have you have got a feature. So you set up a feature, like you have installed your Linux system, and now you would like to add a web server functionality. So you do your web server installation, whatever that is, and then you say, I would like to monitor it, and then you take your special web server monitoring template and attach it to the system. Now, this one is if you have more than one component, like we have here with the email server thing, then you have to realize, or you have to remember, which templates do I need to apply to the system to really do the entire monitoring of my system over all applications. And then you can say, you know what, I define a high-level template, let me call it this way, and you put in all your sub-templates into this high-level template, and then you just need to assign this high-level template to your system, and you are done. Yeah? So once you apply the template email server to email server 1, you apply template PGSQL, Apache, and postfix, since they are all contained within the template email server. Yeah? Both is possible. There are pros and cons for both strategies, and it's a topic on its own, like how to do proper template design. Okay, some words about how can I extend it. So if all this what I've shown you, or what we've seen so far, is not sufficient in terms of, but I need more. Yes, you can. So you can run nearly any command as an item to return a value. There are some specifics that can be run through the Zabbix server, so the Zabbix agent itself, etc. You can run any command on the agent and on the server side, which means through the agent. So the agent performs an external command, or the Zabbix server as an instance provides this command. You can run any command in response to events, like for example what I mentioned with the exchange thing. Yeah. So in response to the event, exchange service is down, please restart the exchange service. That would be a command in response to an event. And with the Zabbix sender tool, you can feed nearly any sort of data from any third-party application or custom script, which looks like, I think this, yeah, this is. So Zabbix sender is a command line utility available through all platforms where the agent is also available to. And you can shoot up single values, as well as you can shoot a series of values, which can also contain timestamps. So you really keep the proper timestamp. Okay, automation. So far we have in our toolbox the template thing, which is good. I mean, we define just a template for a certain application type, and shwoobly-boops, we can apply to any host. This is good. It's actually really good. Zabbix provides auto-discovery and auto-registration without going into depths. Auto-discovery means Zabbix scans the network, and if you find something, depending on rules that you set, then those hosts are added to the system on one hand, and also you can ask an auto-discovery to preset templates. Like for example, if OS equals to, for example, you roll out on any new system the Zabbix agent, and the Zabbix agent can auto-register the host himself. It will provide the operating system type, and then the auto-discovery rule can automatically assign like a base template, and then figure out which applications are running on them, and then automatically attach like the Apache template, for example. So this can all be done automatically. Auto-registration, I just covered that one. Low-level discovery means, let's say you have a different number of network interfaces, you have a different number of file systems and stuff like that. It's very hard to work with hard-coded items, and here comes a low-level discovery in place, which allows to query, for example, give me a list of file systems, give me a list of network devices, and then based on that list, you can define rules to automatically create items, triggers, and stuff like that. Very, very powerful, really, really powerful. So the low-level discovery is really, really good. Let's say you have got an SNMP device, like a switch, and you would like to get access to all of the switch ports. You do an auto-discovery on an SNMP level, and then it returns the interfaces back, and the rule creates automatically for each interface whatever you like to measure, like ingoing, outgoing traffic, etc. Yeah, the last one we need to talk about in terms of automation is the Zabbix API, and the Zabbix API basically is really, really powerful. So any functionality that you can imagine that Zabbix provides, creating a host, delete a host, create a host group, add an item, etc., etc., etc. All of this is available through a JSON RPC API, yeah. And I'll just try to give you an idea about of how it would look like. Yeah, this is like, for example, a post I do to the JSON API. All you need to do is you need to define the content type, which must be application JSON RPC, and then you can send over a JSON string. So you see the formatting there, and then you get an answer to this. Very, very powerful. We use it a lot. We have a command line wrapper that allows us to, work with this through the command line. You can use curl, for example, which would work also. Very, very powerful. As any third-party tool that allows a little bit of automation is basically using this API. Okay, that was what is Zabbix about. Now we talk about what is new in 3.0, and we have still some minutes left for that, and that's why you are here. So, 3.0, what's new? Okay, simple thing. TCP DNS support for DNS items is now available also for TCP, not only for UDP. Yeah, this is directly from September, from the presentation in Riga, by the way. API enhancements. The Zabbix API now returns in certain areas the permission, as the access rights of the user in an API call. That was not possible before. Low-level discovery enhancements for trigger dependencies. This is a big one. This is a very big one. And I know this is difficult. Some of you have not used Zabbix at all, so I try to give you an intro about that one. And some of you are using Zabbix and are keen on to see what's new in 3.0, yeah? But this requires some knowledge. So this one is really a good one. So what it does is, when you do low-level discovery, like for example, you discover your file systems, and you set up rules like if free space is below 10 gig or whatever you have, yeah. The new LLD enhancement for trigger dependencies allows you to define trigger dependencies within the prototype. So you can, for example, say you define on the prototype level not only the trigger if it's below then, but you can define, you can create multiple items, or you can define multiple triggers within the prototype that are dependent to each other. So what you usually would have to handcraft. So like mail server 1 and mail server 2 thing. Yeah, where you combine multiple triggers, and that can be done now in one go, automatically created using the LLD stuff, using the low-level discovery stuff. So this is really, really powerful. XML versioning is just a minor one, but now the Zabbix XML files contain at least a version number about which Zabbix version was exporting them or creating them. By the way, these XML files are the foundation to exchange templates. If I have a template and I press export to XML, then I get this file and I can give it to you. You can import it and you have the same template, which is what the other slide was about. IPv6 for Java Gateway. Java Gateway actually does not support IPv6 with 3.0. It will, yeah, for those of you who are interested in and using it. General cleanup. This is something which is not directly visible, but I can promise you it's most of the work being spent actually on Zabbix. It's a rewrite. It's a rewrite and the work on the front end side. Yeah. So the entire code base for the front end is written to really conform to the MVC, to the model view controller structure, and really Zabbix is hard working on making it easy, extendable, and allow easy for modifications, etc., based on this MVC structure. So the front end code is in a much better shape, but it's a huge undertaking. It's big work. Yeah. Inventorize the inventory. We didn't spoke about that one. Zabbix provides for each host an inventory database where you can add like the serial number, like support contract number, like MAC address, and all of these sort of things. And these values can be auto-populated by Zabbix. So you can define an item like, you can use the operating system version item, which returns the operating system, and then you can use this item to populate the operating system field in the host inventory. Yeah? So you can easily look up and see, well, this host has this operating system installed, or you can use like a query on which software is installed and push that into the software installed section of the host inventory. And in the past, it was not possible to set those items automatically when the hosts were automatically discovered, and that's now possible, which means you set up a Zabbix agent automatically on each system. The agent automatically connects to the server registers the host, and now the host will get a host profile with like a serial number, whatever this agent is able to retrieve from your system, which is a lot, like MAC address, like, yeah, this sort of thing. Yeah, maintenance. For those that are not running on a day-to-day business with Zabbix, it might not be that important, but if you're spending more time with it, then it's really useful. In 2.4, Zabbix started to provide runtime control options, so you could configure the Zabbix server on a command line without actually restarting the server. And restarting the server might be an issue if you have a huge number of hosts, because you have to put them first in maintenance to avoid like the triggers fires and stuff like that. And Zabbix introduced the runtime control parameter, and now you can do the housekeeping, which means a database cleanup by just issuing this command without having a downtime on the Zabbix server. It's a feature that the community really requested quite often. So those of you working with Zabbix more on a day-to-day basis will know what I'm talking about. Yeah. More memory monitoring, new items to do the memory monitoring thing, improved log file monitoring. It's beyond the fact that it's better, faster, more nice, and so on. You know this stuff, yeah? What it actually provides is it allows you, so actually monitoring, log file monitoring is that the entire string is kept in the database as an item. So the entire line is being, yeah? And then you deal with it somehow. Yeah. Then the log monitoring in 3.0 allows you to define a regular expression, and then you can extract, like, for example, a numeric value out of this log line and just save this numeric value as an item instead of the entire log line, and then create a trigger condition on this one. Yeah. Like, for example, you would get a log message like number of users logged in 5, for example. That would be a syslog message. Then you can extract the information 5 as a numeric value with a new log item, and then you can, for example, define a trigger if item bigger than 5, then give me an alert, for example. So that's possible for Windows logs and for Unix logs. Yeah, per process CPU usage, a new item that's being there. We'll just step over this. Quant type, this is important. concept like item scheduling. Actually, if the server is, or if the server queries items from the agent, or the agent is sending items over, or then you have the option to define a flexible interval, or you say that every 30 seconds between like 9 in the morning and 7 in the evening, you can do this sort of thing. But that's all. With Zabbix 3.0, you have the option to use some Quan-like syntax to define Quan-like time intervals. Yeah? So for example, every 2 hours starting with 9 until 17. This is possible now with Zabbix 3.0. So you can really have a precise definition about when you would like to monitor what. We have, for example, a use case. There's a company, they create, they're running a process. This process runs on 1 or 2 days in the week. Think about like 7 p.m. to maximum is 9 p.m. So some cleanup process. I don't know, and it writes a log file. So we need to monitor this process only at that time, and then we need to get this log file what this process created and need to pass it over. There will be use case for this one. Yeah. Percentile. Okay, hand sign. Who knows what percentile is about? I won't. Hey, I'm impressed. Yeah, I'm impressed. Those giving me the hand, you would agree that's hard to explain? Yeah. So we won't waste time on this. It's cool. 5 guys just showed up their hand. Please ask those guys after the session. They will explain in detail to you what percentile is about. Yeah. It's cool, it's useful, and you need really to understand what we are talking here. And Zabbix is able to deal with it, yeah? But you know what? I will take you to the next slide, which is much easier to explain, yeah? Which is this one, prediction. Hey, this is cool, okay. So if you gamble, for example, Zabbix is for you, yeah? So, forecast. In the future, yeah, what will be the value? This is cool, isn't it? Yeah. So I tried it with this, what we have in Germany, with where you can sign up for some numbers between 1 and 49, but it didn't work out yet. Yeah, but we are still giving it a try. So forecast in the specific type, what will be the value? So Zabbix comes with a prediction in 3.0, and this is cool. Yeah, this is cool. So for example, this item, what you see there, would say. So what is the size based on the last 7 days in the next 7 days? And if this, what comes out there, is below 100 megabyte, then fire. Yeah? Okay, so, yeah. So, over the course of the last 7 days, so that is what's being used as a base for the calculation to do this prediction. For the next 7 days, yeah. So, or pardon me, not for the next, but in 7 days, so to read, yeah. So what if the result what comes out here is less than 100 meg in this case, then the trigger would fire. So it's a trigger function, yeah. It's a trigger function. Now. No one asked this, but I will just add this. You understand that this function depends heavily on, for example, if I have a curve that, if this is a system, if I have a curve that goes like this, it's pretty easy to do a forecast. Yeah. If I have something like this, it's also very easy to use a forecast. Yeah. If I have something like this, maybe it's easier. Yeah. Okay. And it could also be like this. So. You see there are 2 commas and there's nothing in between actually, yeah? And the parameter in between those commas is a parameter that you can define or tell Zabbix which mathematical function to extrapolate this forecast should be used. And it's nothing that Zabbix invented themselves. So we are using a standard math, very powerful I can do forecast library, yeah? Which is well known, and if you compile it, you will see it. I don't remember the name though, and this library comes with all of this stuff. Yeah, and we are just using this one. So you really need to understand, if you're using this function, you really need to understand, so how would the data look like? It's a polygon, it's linear, and stuff like that, yeah? But it works, actually. And of course, you need to set up this parameter is important. So what is the calculation base? Yeah. So let's say, for example, I've got a sinus curve like this one, and I would just give this here, this one as a range. Yeah. Then it would look to the forecast function like a linear function, yeah, which is steadily increasing. Okay. And what is the other prediction function? Time left. How much time do I have left? Yeah. On the Zabbix conference, someone was making a very bad joke. Yeah, and he was saying that because someone announced that there would be a Zabbix agent now available for Androids, yeah, and would have access to this health functionality, like with this wearable stuff. Yeah, and then someone made a joke saying that Zabbix could forecast or give you the time left that you have based on your current. Your current habits that you have, like smoker, drinker, whatever. Yeah. Okay. So time left is pretty much the same. Again, you will notice 2 commas here. That would be the different where you can define the function that you use to do the extrapolation of this value. Yeah. And time left, for example, would say based on the last 7 days. Yeah. How much time do I have left until VFS3 will reach this value here? Or will be, in this case, yeah, will reach this value. Yeah? And if the time is less than an hour, then the trigger fires. Because then I can be pretty sure that my backup space will be dead within less than 60 minutes. So this is really fun. Yeah? Okay, front-end usability. Filtering for the for some trigger items. Some dashboard improvement, like you can filter also for trigger items. Yeah, this one is really nice. I told you about the macro stuff within Zabbix. Yeah, and this one is really cool because it shows you how the macro would resolve. Like for example, you have macros defined on a global level, you have defined them on a template level and on a host level, and now you can easily see. So what will the final value be? Like for example, the global value, for example, for this one here is 334, yeah, and on the template value level it would be 13, and then the active assigned value on the host is something that it matches 1. So this is really cool. This one is a minor improvement. It just simplifies the process of acknowledgement of triggers. And the last one in this area is that for those of you working with Zabbix, actually maps and screens like visuals of data and hosts and stuff like that requires administration and configuration rights. And so the standard user can't do this. And with 3.0, the idea is to enable standard users to exactly this, make nice screens, make nice network maps and stuff like that without having administrative rights on Zabbix, and be able to share them with other users. Yeah? So for example, you can send them to your manager. Your manager can then use them. Yeah? So the network map for your database servers that you are responsible for example. Yeah? So, and I think it's a good decision because actually the Zabbix admin has to do it or has to grant configuration rights to people that otherwise might screw up the system. Yeah. New design, from 1.6 to 2.4, Zabbix looked pretty much like this. Yeah, I'm not saying that's bad. Actually, I like this layout. It's pretty compact and so on. But people says, okay, well, we would like to see something new. So with 3.0, it's going to a more modern design, and that's just a preview and a screenshot of the new modern design. One thing to mention is this Zabbix share on the top over there. You will notice that Zabbix start is Zabbix share, which is a platform to change scripts, templates, and stuff like that. And we built in an access to Zabbix share through the front, and so you can easily connect to Zabbix share and might see new templates and stuff like that that are useful to you. Yeah, another screenshot for the new design. A little bit more modern than the old one was. Yeah. Low-level discovery. Yeah, this one is fun. Low-level discovery now allows to set up multiple OEDs for SNMP discovery and return multiple values back. In this case, for example, description and alias are returned back. yeah, in one go. Yeah, so this is, by the way, how a discovery does look like. Filter results. For Windows services, we can now discover also Windows services via LLD, via low-level discovery, which allows to automatically detect all the Windows services running on a Windows system based on some filter rules that you define upfront. All these values are available. And database auto-discovery allows you to use any SQL query as a low-level discovery. In this case, you would get, for example, automatic items. If that would be the discoverer, you would get an item saying Japan 1 equals to 5, Japan 2 equals to 12, etc. But you can also, for example, do a low-level discovery on a database, and then you get the information about all the tables within the database. Or you make a regular expression and filter them. Very powerful, very powerful. Yeah. And macros, we just have seen the macros. Macros can now be set in context, in a context, which means that I usually have this FS3 macro, and this expands to 10. Yeah, but if the key used in the item with a macro equals to home, for example, then FS3 should not be 10, but should be 20. Yeah, so macros can be used in a context. That is really useful. Yeah? If I wouldn't have this one, I would have to define like a VFS3 root, VFS3 home, or a VFS3 var macro on its own. Yeah? This one is far more intuitive. The last big one for Zabbix, yeah? The last big step for Zabbix is encryption. That is the last big major thing. Why would it be needed? Because usually you would use Zabbix on a local area network. Yeah, basically to protect data, of course, because the configuration data moves forth and back with no encryption on. It's plain text. Yeah, and also for authentication that not any client, any host can connect to data, can send stuff to data. Yeah, so that are the most reasons. And if your Zabbix server instance is available through the public, for example, then you could, for example, screw your Zabbix server instance with a denial of service attack against the SNMP, against the Zabbix Trapper port, would be possible. All of this is gone with encryption. Actually, we solved the problem because we do connect our proxies through SSH tunnels and tunnel the traffic through SSH. Other companies using S-tunnel, for example, or VPNs. Yeah, but nowadays, or not nowadays, but now with 3.0, Zabbix is natively able to do exactly that. When the design was done for Zabbix to provide encryption, one important rule was that we said we won't rely on just one encryption library, yeah, but might be that there be a security flavor, for example, and the interface should abstract. So actually, you can have a choice between OpenSSL, TLS, and embed TLS. Yeah, so these are available. The encryption can be configured to use certificates as well as pre-shared keys. So both is possible, yeah, and any component within Zabbix is supported, yeah. So even the command line tools like Zabbix Sender, yeah? As you can see here, you remember the small tool was able to inject data, yeah. Even that is able to talk encrypted, yeah. So all components are encrypted. Very powerful. It's a pleasure to play with it, and it works really nicely. Yeah. Okay, that was the last slide. We are just in time, more or less, yeah. So if you have any questions, then feel free to give me a sign. This man has a microphone.
Hi, regarding the web checks, you talked about scenarios. Is it possible to do several requests to the web server inside a scenario?
Yes, you can define as many steps as you would like to, and you can make it dependent on the previous result. Yeah, for example, the first one is like you just open the website, yeah, and what you would like to get is back. You would like to get back an HTTP code of, for example, 200, which would be will make sense, yeah. And you would like, for example, that the HTML must contain a string like if it's a company website, then we contain, for example, IntelliTrend. Yeah, so you know this one works. I'm on the IntelliTrend side, and web server seems to go. First step. Now you do a second one is you log in actually. So you provide a post. So you send your login data and log into the website. And then you would expect that the HTML in return would also give you a 200 and would also give you something in the HTML like welcome Wolfgang, for example. Yeah. So you know. So
there's no limit. Just
no.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
So one last question.
Hi.
Hi.
Thanks for the presentation. One thing when switching from eSingle to Zabbix was that we never figured out why it was this way is that acknowledgements once given can't be removed from the triggers, which runs into if you use it like other monitoring systems, you run into issues because you never see the trigger again once you acknowledge them. Do you know what the reasoning behind that is?
Yeah. Actually, I discussed this at the time when it was being implemented, the acknowledgement thing, and I was requesting this when we did the first. We had an asterisk integration where you could define with DTMF. So asterisk is this open source tool, you know, was giving you a call, and then you could just confirm and say, well, I've acknowledged this one, yeah. Because other than that, the SMS could be received, the call could be received, but it's not answered, so you need some confirmation. And we treat actually the acknowledgement as something what it is. It's an acknowledgement. So you acknowledge this issue. So that is why it is this way. So you can't remove this acknowledgement again. It's like, it's like a printed bill. Yeah? So you sign and say, well, for example, myself, Wolfgang, now, yeah, I say, yes, I will deal with this issue. And that's why it is. So, and if you can take it away, yeah, then it would not have this, then it would be different. So that's why it is. If your question is more like, can I get access to triggers that are in a state of acknowledged but don't show up, if this is a question behind, yeah, that's a different issue. And this could be easily solved, for example, with a custom script using the Zabbix API. Very easy, very, very easy. Yeah.
So thank you, Wolfgang, for your nice insight into Zabbix. If someone else has a question, please ask him later. Now the next talk in this room will be in German, the talk on OPSI, and in the other rooms, talk in English on to the monitoring done by Spotify.
Okay, thank you.